Welcome everyone to this special video. As you can tell by the title, or whatever, and by what's behind me, this is my history of the Power Rangers. Power Rangers is something that I am a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of Power Rangers. I've never really talked about it in any videos. Well, I kind of mentioned it like with some VHSs and stuff, but I've only mentioned it very briefly. And yeah, so this is my history. My very first video. I've commented on a lot of videos, and and like, you're probably going to think, oh, your history is the same as everybody else's. You were into Power Rangers, you got out of it, you got back into it. Well, my history is not exactly like that. And yeah, it might be similar, but not quite like that. So let's get started. My history started way back in 1993, and I think it was either during the Green with Evil miniseries or right before it. I don't think it was Day of the Dumpster, because I don't remember that being my first episode watching. I don't remember what my first episode I watched. Yes, it's very hard, but I know it was in 1993, and like I said, it was either during Green with Evil or right before Green with Evil. And yeah, I became a huge fan of it. My cousin was a fan of it. My best friend at school was a fan of it, and actually even other people in the class was a fan of it. And so I've watched it. I guess I could run through the seasons of my history with each season. So I watched Mighty Morphin, enjoyed it. Got some of the action figures. As you can see, probably this one right here, my Tommy Green Ranger action figure was, I think, my first action figure. Well, I don't know about my first one, but it's one of my first ones. And and my first VHSs that I got were this one, Day of the Dumpster, and I think this one, No Clowning Around. I used to watch it, those two, and then later on I got, I don't know if you can see it, this one here, the High Five. Okay, now I'm getting too much into the VHSs, that's going to be later. Anyways, I used to watch it a lot, because I think it was on, unlike today, where it's only on basically every Saturday. I think back then, they had a new episode like more than once a week. And yeah, so I used to watch it, and as far as what my favorite Ranger is, I don't really have a favorite one. I know everyone says Tommy or Jason or one of the originals, but I've never, tell you the truth, this is going to sound really weird, but back then, I've never really considered any of them as a leader. I always considered them as a team. But now I guess you could looking back at it, I could say that, yes, you could see probably Jason was a leader and then later Tommy. But at the time, I always considered that, even today, I still consider them more as a team than one of them being a leader. So yeah, I watched the first season, and then when the second season started with Lord Zedd, I was actually surprised, because after seeing Rita Repulsa for so long, it's just like, wow, a new bad guy. I don't know what to think at first about Lord Zedd. I guess eventually got used to him, because I was so used to Rita that Lord Zedd came in. As far as which one I like better, I actually say I like both Rita and Lord Zedd the same. And then when Jason, Zach, and Trini left, I don't think I actually remember that. Like, I remember when they left, but I don't remember them being leading into that because I don't remember that too much. I don't know why. So anyways, as you know, Rocky, Aisha, and Adam came in, and I continued watching them. Then they went. So I continued watching it, and then when the movie came out, I actually didn't get the movie until my birthday, in May of '95. and then we had a new bad guy, and well, actually no, Lord Zed and Rita came back, got married. Rita's brother Rito Revolto came back, or came in. Yeah. And I forgot they always fought with Goldar, and okay, I feel like I'm repeating everything everybody knows. So yeah, but I'm just giving my history of why I enjoyed it. I just really liked the episodes a lot. Yeah, I just really like the show. And it's been a while since I've seen the second season, so I know it might seem kind of fuzzy. That's why I'm not really talking much about the second and even third season. I know the third season when they brought Catherine in. She was a bad girl, which I really liked that. And at first, I was kind of disappointed that she eventually become the Pink Ranger, but after a while, I think she really came into her own into the following season. Yeah. And I remember at the end of Mighty Morphin, I was like, whoa, the command center just blew up, and that's probably my most memorable moment in the history of Power Rangers, is when the command center blew up, because for 3 years, or for how long the show was on for at the time, I think, yeah, it's three seasons, all of a sudden, you see this command center blow up, and it's like, wow. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, well, I guess I could talk about. Well, then there's the Alien Rangers, which I didn't mind about that. I know some people didn't like the Alien Rangers, but I thought they were fine. I was happy when the Power Rangers came back, but then all of a sudden the command center blew up, and yeah, and then that led us into Zeo, and Zeo was very interesting. For the first time, they got new suits, and while they always get new Zords, like every season, they always got new Zords. But they had sort of a new command center that's underground. And yeah, and I liked Zeo. And yeah, I used to tape it, or my dad used to tape it for me a lot. Yeah, along with Big Bad Beetleborgs. I know that's separate, but yeah. And so I used to watch it. I remember the whole thing. And then Jason coming back, and then him becoming the Gold Ranger, and Billy only being like an assistant to Zordon and Alpha, and then him leaving, and yeah. And then there was Turbo. So what can I say about Turbo? As you could tell, I have, at the time, the only home video release of Turbo, which was the movie. And I actually didn't see that until, I think, later on. I remember seeing the trailers for it, during the commercials and stuff. But I actually never seen the movie until I think I got it for Christmas later that year. So yeah, but they did recap it, as you know, at the beginning of the Turbo series. And when I actually first seen it, the first episode I think I remember seeing of Turbo was, I don't remember what episode it was, but all of a sudden you see this kid Justin grow into a Power Ranger. I actually did think that was kind of weird, kind of him growing, being a Power Ranger and growing, because that's never really happened before. So, yeah, and as for what I think of Justin, I know a lot of people don't like him. I thought he was okay. I thought he was okay. Yeah, but it was kind of weird that the Rocky disappeared, and so this was like the third Blue Ranger that we had. Or wow, whatever. A second Blue Ranger, I guess you could say. No, actually, no, it would be three, because Billy was the first, then Rocky, and then Justin. And then, now this really gets really blurry. I cannot remember too much about Turbo. I don't know why I do remember. This might sound kind of weird. I do remember watching Turbo, but I don't remember what I watched. Yeah, I don't know. I think because it was on early in the morning or something, and I just don't remember watching. And I don't think they really re-aired it after Turbo ended. Yeah, I don't think they really showed much reruns of it at the time. And so, yeah, I think I kind of remember, when the powers were, transferred to, TJ, Cassie, Ashley, and Carlos. I do remember them. I think I remember them getting their powers, but even that's very fuzzy, and yeah, I know it's very weird. And then I think at that time is when I started to lose interest in the Power Rangers. I still watched it, but I wasn't as invested into it as I once was. And so then it led off into In Space, where obviously Justin was left behind, and then went off into space and got new powers, met Andros, who became the new Red Ranger. And also at the beginning of In Space, I actually taped this episode when they finally, after all these years, they finally met the Ninja Turtles, even though it's the Ninja Turtles The Next Mutation, which nobody likes. And I'll have to admit myself that at the time I didn't really care for the show, Ninja Turtles The Next Mutation. I know once again I'm getting off topic, but at the time I didn't care for the show. But now, you know what, I probably will like it, because I do want to get the DVDs, and yeah. I think for me, it was just too soon after the cartoon series, even though at that time I never really watched the cartoon series for a couple years at that time. I don't know. Anyway, sorry for getting off topic, but yeah, so I watched In Space. I liked it, but I wasn't as interested in it as I was with like Mighty Morphin and Zeo. And so I watched it, and and then I actually did see Countdown to Destruction when it originally aired, but I was kind of confused. Okay, what's going on? Okay, all these monsters are getting destroyed, and I guess it's when Zordon's 2 was destroyed, that destroyed all these monsters and turned all these other monsters like Rita, Lord Zed. Sorry for the spoilers here, but Rita, Lord Zed, Divatox, and some other ones, they were turned all to good monsters, and all the other ones were turned to like dust and whatever. And so that would end the entire Zordon era. And then they started with Lost Galaxy, and then I was kind of, they're restarting, like, usually, as you know, the seasons would continue into each other, but this one, they actually kind of restarted with a new team. And then I think I was losing even more interest in it. And yeah, yeah, yeah. They're losing more interest. I was losing more interest in it, but I was happy. Eventually they did bring back Alpha 6 from Turbo In Space, so I was happy about that. And then they killed off. I guess they killed off the Pink Ranger, and then Karone, who is Astronomer in Space season. She came back as a Pink Ranger, which I thought was very interesting. Like seeing a former major bad guy coming back as a Power Ranger. I thought that was very interesting. But unfortunately, at that time is when I was starting high school, and because I was starting high school, I had to get up early, and so because I had to get up early, I didn't want to get up early. Because I think at this time, Power Rangers was only airing on Saturdays, the new episodes. I actually wanted to sleep in on Saturdays because I was in high school, and so eventually I stopped watching it on TV, and this was just after Karone became the Pink Ranger. So I actually did not see the final episode until years later on YouTube, which was back in 2007. I didn't see the final episode of Lost Galaxy until 2007 is when I watched it, which I did like, and so I stopped watching Power Rangers. And then as for Lightspeed Rescue, I don't think I watched it. I think I remember seeing the team up, but even that was very briefly because I wasn't really watching much Saturday morning stuff at that time. Because since I was in school, I was in high school, I had to get up early, and I want to sleep in on Saturdays, and so that's why. But what I've seen of Lightspeed Rescue, I don't know if it's my favorite season, but I can't really say much about it because I haven't really seen I've only seen very little about it, so I can't really say too much about it. But here's the one thing: I actually did keep my VHSs. I kept the 2 movies, as you could tell. I kept all 5 of the original VHSs, and I kept a bunch of episodes from Zeo, and also I had the first 2 parts of the 2 re-releases of Green with Evil, the part 1 and part 2 of Green with Evil. when they re-released it a couple years later. So but I did continue watching those. So I did watch. I wasn't completely out of Power Rangers because I did watch my VHS that I have once in a while, but I wasn't really watching it on TV anymore because I think I just missed the original cast so much. Like I said, even when the cast changed during Turbo, I think I was losing interest in it because I just missed the cast so much. Yeah. And then Time Force came out, and what can I say about Time Force? Absolutely nothing. I cannot say anything about Time Force. The only thing I've watched about Time Force was the one episode that I watched years later that was dedicated to Thuy Trang, who played Trini, and unfortunately, as you know, she's no longer with us. And the only other thing I watched was Linkara's review of Time Force, and other than that, other than the one episode and the Cars reviews, that's the only thing I've ever seen, and some clips. That's the only thing I've ever seen of Time Force. So that's probably one of the ones I know least about. Actually, probably it's the one I know least about. And yeah. Well, actually, I probably know more because thanks to Linkara. But so I can't really say much about it because I never watched it on TV. I've only seen clips, and yeah. Then Wild Force came out. Now, Wild Force was kind of a strange year. Because I consider that more of a trend thing from the Saban era, as people like calling it, to the Disney era. And the only thing I know I watched at the time, the only thing I watched about Wild Force was the whole Wolf saga, when this Wolf Range, the Luna Wolf thing. Yeah, I do remember watching that, and yeah, I don't, and that's all I remember watching. I did later on watch the first episode, and actually I never did see the last episode. And as you know, and now I'm going to kind of back history, but as you know, or if maybe you don't know, Power Rangers was supposed to end at the last episodes. That's why it was called The End of the Power Rangers or something. And they were originally going to air it or end it after that. But then someone came up with the idea, let's move it to New Zealand, and yeah. And let's forget all about the whole hexagon thing, which I'll get to in a minute. Yeah. So then they started making Ninja Storm. Now, before I get into Ninja Storm, I know this is kind of old news and everybody probably has heard about this, and I don't know how accurate it is, but as you know, there's a thing they were planning on doing, the hexagon thing. Yeah. Sorry for the cut there. Yeah, so the hexagon report, or the hexagon thing, yeah, I actually thought it would have been a better idea than what Ninja Storm was. As you know, I'm not going to really get too much into it because I've read it twice and I've really enjoyed what I've read, and I just imagine, whoa, if this really happened, it's like, wow. What was supposed to happen is, according to what I read, there's supposed to be two teams of Power Rangers. There's supposed to be like these other teams, like kind of like the Tommy was supposed to help run, help bring back, and then there's supposed to be these anti ones that didn't like what the other Rangers were doing. So there's like two sides, like they're both good Rangers, but they both had different, I guess, things that they wanted to do to fight the bad guys. And then also I heard that Jason was supposed to come back and be on the opposite side of Tommy, and so yeah. And there was also supposed to be a lot of returning Rangers and monsters returning, and I think that would have been wow. Like a lot of the monsters that, because as you know, in Countdown to Destruction, there's a couple monsters that we see, like Scorpina, I think was supposed to come back, because we didn't see her in the Countdown to Destruction episode, and some other ones that came out later on. Yeah, and yeah, I think that would have been a really good season. But unfortunately, I think there's a couple problems with it. Like I said, during Wild Force, this was during a transition from Saban to Disney, and yeah, and also I think not only that, but I think because they wanted to bring back all these monsters, and also they were going to create a new Power Ranger, like a yellow, another Yellow Ranger, a Yellow Ranger for, or something. I don't know, a female Ranger. There's plans to create a female Ranger. There's going to be three. There's going to be three on, I guess, this team that Tommy was running, and then three on the other team. But and they would have to create another Ranger, and then they had to create a lot of new footage. And I'm guessing, like, because of like I said, it transitioning from Saban to Disney, and also I felt like it was going to cost a lot of money, because it's probably been probably the most expensive season ever made. Like, even probably by today's things, it probably been even expensive. But yeah. And so, I just, unfortunately, because of what came out later, I think it's going to be very hard to do something like that. It's probably going to be impossible to do it. Now, they could take stuff from the Hexagon report and put it into future seasons, but as far as actually making a Hexagon season, I can't really see that happening, because it's this way too much time. That was like back in 2001, 2002, so it's been over 10 years since that's happened. A lot has happened in the Power Rangers universe since then, and it's just, it'd be way, if they're to do it, they'll have to do it more than a year. It'd take probably a couple years to do it, and even then it'd probably be too difficult. So anyways, so I just wished that would have happened, but unfortunately it didn't, and so I guess let's move on.